Have you ever heard of a hero who didn't wear stars on her shoulders or command a squad? But when the bullets started flying, she became the reason dozens came home alive? This is the story of Sergeant Lena Brooks, a combat medic who went from saving lives to rewriting what bravery means on the battlefield that you're watching grow for justice. The channel that brings you true style stories of courage, sacrifice, and the human spirit. Make sure you subscribe right now and tell us where you're watching from in the comments below, because this one will make your heart race and your eyes tear up at the same time. The desert was quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that makes even trained soldiers uneasy. It was mid-afternoon in Kandahar province, and the heat made the air shimmer above the sand like a ghost. Sergeant Lena Brooks, 28 years old, crouched behind a Humvee, her medic bag pressed against her chest. Around her, Alpha Squad of the 72nd Infantry was pushing through a narrow valley, a known hot spot for ambushes. She wasn't supposed to be in the front. Medics usually stayed in the middle of the convoy, close enough to reach the wounded, far enough to avoid the first wave of fire. But Lena wasn't built to hide. She'd volunteered to ride with Captain Harris, her commander, a man known for his strict discipline and deep respect for his troops. "You stick close to me," he told her that morning. "We'll keep you safe." But in war, promises are like smoke. The first shot cracked through the silence like lightning splitting the sky. Then came another, and another. Within seconds, the quiet valley erupted into chaos. Bullets tore through metal. Sand exploded into clouds. The smell of burning fuel filled the air. Harris barked orders, his voice steady, commanding his men to take cover. Lena hit the dirt, her heart pounding as she crawled toward the nearest wounded soldier screaming for help. Her hands moved faster than thought. Tourniquet, bandage, morphine. Blood sprayed across her sleeves, but she didn't stop. She dragged one man behind a tire, another behind a crate, patching, pressing, saving. Every scream felt like a countdown against time. Then, through the haze, she saw him, Captain Harris, running toward the ridge with his rifle raised. He didn't see the insurgent behind the burned-out vehicle. Lena did. She screamed his name, but the sound drowned in the thunder of gunfire. The shot came too fast. Harris dropped to the ground, clutching his shoulder, blood pouring between his fingers. Without hesitation, Lena sprinted through open fire. Bullets tore the ground beside her, one grazing her thigh. She ignored it. She slid beside Harris, dragging him behind the Humvee. "Stay with me, sir," she yelled, tearing open her kit. His face was pale, his eyes glassy. "It's through and through," she muttered, pressing gauze into the wound. "You're not dying on my watch." "Brooks," he gasped, "fall back." "Not without you," she barked back. Her voice cracked, but her hands didn't shake. She packed the wound, tied the dressing, and jabbed an injector into his arm. Then something inside her shifted. The sound of her comrades screaming, the sight of men she'd patched up moments ago, being cut down again. It broke something deep within her. The medic who was trained only to heal realized that sometimes, to save lives, you have to fight. She looked at the captain's rifle lying beside him. He tried to speak, but before he could, she grabbed it, chamber around, and turned toward the ridge. The first time Lena fired, the recoil nearly knocked her back. But rage steadied her aim. She wasn't thinking of medals or rules, only of stopping the pain around her. Each shot she took was precise, controlled, methodical. The insurgents, hidden behind rocks and debris, didn't expect return fire from medic. Within minutes, their coordinated attack began to falter. The soldiers who were pinned down started shouting in disbelief. "That's Brooks." Medics firing. But Lena didn't hear them. Her world had narrowed into a tunnel of smoke, grit, and focus. She advanced, firing in short bursts, covering her squad's movement, dragging the wounded when she could. She moved like a storm. Calm in the center, chaos all around a T1 point. She reached a soldier who was bleeding out beside a shattered Humvee. She pressed a bandage against his wound with one hand and fired Harris's rifle with the other. "Breathe, soldier," she yelled, her voice hoarse. "We're getting out of here." It wasn't long before air support was called in. The rumble of Apache rotors filled the air, drowning the last of the gunfire. The enemy retreated, their attack shattered by one medic's fury. When the dust finally settled, the battlefield looked like a graveyard of burnt metal and courage. Lena stumbled toward the command truck, her hands shaking now, adrenaline fading. Captain Harris was being lifted onto a stretcher, alive. His eyes met hers, and he managed a weak smile. "You disobeyed orders," he whispered. She smiled back. "You're welcome, sir." Back at the base, word of what happened spread faster than wildfire. Soldiers whispered about the medic with a rifle, the woman who'd turned the tide of a firefight single-handedly. Commanders filed reports. Journalists tried to piece together the chaos. But those who'd been there knew the legend had already been written in gunfire and blood. Harris recovered within weeks. When he returned, he found Lena sitting alone at the medical tent, her hands still bandaged. "You saved me," he said softly. She shook her head. "We saved each other." He chuckled. "You broke half a dozen regulations, Brooks." She looked down, expecting a reprimand. But instead, he handed her a metal box. Inside was a silver star. "You didn't just save me," he said. "You saved every man out there. You showed them that courage doesn't always come from command. It comes from heart." Tears filled her eyes as she stared at the medal. "I'm not a hero," she whispered. He smiled. "That's what all the real ones say." Months later, when Lena returned home, she tried to live quietly. She worked at a veterans clinic, patching up broken bodies and broken minds. But every once in a while, a Marine would walk in, recognize her, and salute. "You're the medic from Kandahar," they'd say. "You're the legend." And she'd just smile and reply, "I was just doing my job." But deep down, she knew that on that scorching day, when the world was falling apart around her, she had found a strength she never knew existed. The strength to fight not out of hate, but out of love for the people beside her. That's the story of Sergeant Lena Brooks, the medic who became a legend. She didn't go looking for war. She didn't want to be remembered. But the world remembered her anyway. Because sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is refuse to let others die when she can still fight to save them. Now tell me in the comments, where are you watching this from? I love seeing how far our stories travel. And if this one touched your heart, inspired you, or gave you chills, don't forget to subscribe to Grow for Justice for more stories of courage, sacrifice, and humanity.